All right, folks, good evening.
Hello.
On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to the LA book launch of What Small Sound by Francesca Bell. Please give it up for Francesca. My name is Jimmy Vega. I'm the Assistant Director of Beyond Baroque. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center, located in Venice, California. Founded in 1968, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the literary institution we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We are currently offering a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop facilitated by Raquel Baker and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop currently facilitated by James Cushing. We also offer paid in-person intensive and paid experience workshops in the center. Next week on Saturday, we'll host a workshop titled Listening to Images with Diana Coy-Wen, and later in the year we have workshops facilitated by Kelsey Bryan-Zwick and Caribbean Fragosa, to name a few. Aside from our workshops, we offer several readings and performances throughout the year. Next week on Saturday, we'll host a marathon reading featuring contributors of Moontide Press's anthology Beat Not Beat, featuring writers such as Brendan Constantine, Pam Ward, Sarah McClay, among others. And on the following Saturday, we will host a program titled Grief Speak in conjunction with the Academy of American Poets and the Poetry Coalition, which explore the theme "And so much loss you'd think beauty had left a lesson, poetry and grief," which is a line from Ed Robertson's poem, Once the Magnolia Has Blossomed. Please come back for that and come back for more. And to learn more about all of that, please visit our website at beyondbaroque.org. And finally, we offer several memberships to Beyond Baroque, starting at $60 for an individual membership. Purchasing a membership really helps us to continue this free events in the space, and also gives us the accessibility to host free weekly workshops online. A big special thanks to all of our staff for making tonight possible. Our executive director, Quentin Ring, our programs coordinator, Yvonne Salinas, our man in the booth and facilities coordinator, Eric Alberg, and our bookstore assistant, Pablo Capra. So if you see us around, please say hi, and thanks to them for all the work they do. And thank you to all in sharing physical space with us, and for anyone tuning in online as well. And I do want to make a note that unfortunately Rebecca Faust will not be joining us today. She's a bit sick, and we're sending her our best wishes, and hopefully she gets better soon. So first up, we'll jump right into this. We have Suzanne O'Connell. Suzanne O'Connell's recently published work can be found in Poet Lore, North American Review, Patterson Literary Review, Crack the Spine, Menacing Hedge, Drunk Monkeys, and Wrath-Bearing Tree, among others. Her two poetry collections, A Prayer for Torn Stockings and What Luck, were published by Garden Oak Press. Please give it up for Suzanne O'Connell.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's such an honor to be here to welcome the birth of Francesca's beautiful book. I keep it by the side of my bed, and I read and reread. And it seems that every day I have a new favorite. My favorite today is Menopause Insomnia News, especially the line, "I flare up and die back down like the tip of God's cigarette." Such a line. The book has everything that I look for, like storytelling, compassion, pathos, humor. It's fantastic, so thank you. The first poem I'm going to read, it was inspired by finding out on my birth certificate that I'm listed as my own mother. So it's called My Little Hand. I grew my skin myself. My mother, she didn't play fair. She was a stack of charred papers. My daddy was a floating head in front, hands on the wheel, while mother reapplied her lipstick. There was something alarming that I couldn't name. On my birth certificate, I was named my own mother. A real switcheroo, but I wasn't laughing. I took my little hand and showed myself around. This is what mothers do, after all. They point and say tree. They point and say shoe. They point and say be careful, red light. I pointed with my own little finger. I taught myself to spit gasoline and to smell the smell. I kissed mortal sin. I kissed mortal combat. I kissed my Uncle John's blind eyes. I wandered around my town, pointing at things, teaching myself, and holding my own little hand while I crossed the busy streets. The second poem is it epistolary? I can never say that word. It's called Dear Babs. Remember when I sent you the birthday cake? I tried to slice it thin, not too much frosting, but the mangle machines at the post office aren't always so kind to envelopes. Speaking of birthdays, I happened upon a list of serial killers and their birth signs. Wouldn't you know that mine, Virgo, kills more often than any other sign? I know Virgos love to interfere in other people's marriages, butt into conversations, organize drawers and closets, but I didn't know our fastidiousness extended to murder, too. You don't have to be afraid. Do you miss the wine train? We had to interrupt so many conversations while it blew by, all whistles and iron wheels, waking you from naps. I miss talking about what you will cook for dinner, how grateful you were that Charlie thought chicken pot pies were gourmet. You would love Marcel. He's a hoot. His latest thing is he blames me for everything. If he steps on a thorn, he comes at me pretending to bite. Someone I knew had a kid like that. After one of the earthquakes, his daughter wouldn't speak to him, thinking he'd caused it. Since you left me behind, my ribs have locked up from lack of laughter. No massage can reach it. Since you left, I smell your letters and miss you. Explaining LA to someone from out of town. Some areas howl more than others. Downtown is like a carnival, the Ferris wheel overgrown with old yellow ivy. A shop selling quinceañera gowns sits next to a trendy bistro with outdoor seating. Men with metal carts sell papayas, tulips, and pineapple. On another corner, a woman prepares tamales. The aroma of roasting pork draws me in. Young folk wearing black layers glide and mingle in the fashion district. The naked eye might see discarded signs from a protest march through Pershing Square. Think of it this way. LA's a glowing body, edges blurred, filled with speed bumps. The light coming from people of every color, age, and religion. It's Tuesday, and I am one minuscule pixel of its light. This one's called I Ate Something. Like tiny meatballs, the bees nestled among the bitter greens and cheese. I didn't see them when I ate the pizza. Soon my throat began buzzing. My stomach was tickled by a hurricane of fluttering wings. A lot of the bees escaped my mouth, hovering in a cloud over my hair. They grabbed words I was thinking in their sticky legs, random words like taffeta, prawns, boneyard, and flew out the window. They flew, carrying their heavy loads, past Ophelia's house with the new paving stones, past Christine's house, now becoming apartments. They flew past the family living in the RV, past the pot dispensary and the potholes. Love is like that, right? The fluttering in the stomach, the drunken buzzing in the head. It looks delicious at first, so easy to gorge without looking too closely. Then it flies away into the soiled sky, covered with bandages in place of clouds. This is my only love poem, as unconventional as it is. It's called What Luck. Somebody ran out on somebody. Somebody drank too much. Over there, an unkind word. In that kitchen, a knife drawer opens or a bruise blooms on a neck. At the shore, a freak wave is forming. But tonight, in the blue TV glow, our dog lies between us. The fire that could have started in the old wires didn't. The errant cells didn't color outside their lines. Tonight, that peculiar wave didn't crest in our direction. Tonight, my toes touch your toes as we watch cars crash together on the 9 o'clock news. My last poem is called A Prayer for Torn Stockings. Bless the torn stockings and the sinking ship. Bless the nights of sin and the hard of hearing who miss a lot. Bless the left-handed ones because they can be somewhat peculiar. Bless the bloated and the forgotten on the dirt road. Bless the film star and the digger of the ditch. Bless, too, the wandering rabbit wandering in the blurred eye of night. And may our little friend be cloaked by darkness. Bless the table spread with abundance, and also bless the potato in a child's pocket. Bless the inventor of the zipper, and bless the warm bread stuffed with nuts and plums for the sweetness upon our tongue. Blessings on this night, blessings stitched as fine as lace underthings strewn over the trees. Blessings on all of us as we stand here in our torn stockings. Thank you all.
Susan O'Connell, folks. Thank you so much, Susan. Yes, please. Next up, we have Douglas Manuel. Douglas Manuel was born in Anderson, Indiana, and now resides in Long Beach, California. He received a BA in creative writing from Arizona State University, an MFA in poetry from Butler University, and a PhD in English literature and creative writing from the University of Southern California. His first collection of poems, Testify, won an IBPA Benjamin Franklin Award for poetry, and his poems and essays can be found in numerous literary journals, magazines, and websites. He has traveled to Egypt and Eritrea with the University of Iowa's International Writing Program to teach poetry. A recipient of the Dana Gioia Poetry Award and a fellowship from the Borchard Foundation Center on Literary Arts, he is a Bayard Rustin Fellow at Whittier College and teaches at Spalding University's low-res MFA program. Please welcome Douglas Manuel.
I low-key hate bios. It always feels so tawdry and self-serving. Feels like it goes on too long. But thank you for that, Jimmy. I'm so thankful to be here. Mad respect due to Francesca. Let's give it up. We get to celebrate this book launch, y'all. Wow, no, come on now. Yes. And of course, thank you to Kate Gale as well. Red Hens Say What? We were up in here. And Suzanne, that was an awesome reading. I'm going to push the stopwatch because, as you guys can already tell, I'm pretty long-winded, so I got to make sure that I don't be out of the pocket. And again, it's so awesome to be here. I mean, there's basketball happening. There's so much happening right now. So I'm from Indiana, as y'all know, so of course I might be thinking about the game a little bit, but only a little bit. So yeah, no, I'm going to start out with a poem from my first book, Testify, because it kind of is the launch board into the new text. It was cool talking to Pablo out there, Apollo, and talking about the second book, because the second book in many ways is a prequel to Testify. And it was me trying to figure out the America that my parents fell in love with and thinking about how much it rhymes with our contemporary moment. So what you need to know about this poem that I'm about to read from Testify, it's the last poem in the text. And my mother had multiple sclerosis and my father fell victim to the crack epidemic of the 80s. I like to use that language, the crack epidemic, because I think it's really, really important that we think about it in that fashion. So much of Testify was me thinking of my father as a bad person and thinking of him as a criminal instead of somebody who was sick. And I think it's very interesting how, with the opioid crisis and with the meth crisis, when the bodies look a little bit different, how we talk about mental illness all the time. But my daddy was a felon, the cripple and the crackhead. If there's a way, a proper way, to lift your damp, naked ex-wife out of the bathtub, he guesses this is it. Folding one cracked, slackened arm under her legs, the other above the small of her back. Once, there are women with ice-pick eyes and sin grins, the ones he slept with while she slept in their bed alone. But now he's here. Cracked somersaults in his veins, but he's here. Her hair wet and black, dripping off the back of his hand. The sound of this moment is not the blues, not a plea, but a testimony. Her lips touch his cheek as he carries her. This instant is wide and round. It's their son's eyes when he sees that kiss. So, besides thinking about late 70s and early 80s America, the other kind of driving force of this book is my dad was a DJ. And so he was a DJ before the rise of hip hop, right before. So it wasn't about how bad you can beat, juggle, or scratch. It was about song selection and being able to fill out a crowd of people. So I decided to name each poem in this text has a song that he liked to spin. So a lot of ways this became like a way for me and my father to get to know each other better and kind of touch base, because a lot of times we, I like to say, practice thick, tough love, to use that beautiful term from Toni Morrison. Shout out to Beloved. I know a lot of us love it in here. All right, and so the only other thing you need to know besides each poem is titled after a song is the year that I say after the title is the narrative action of the poem, not the year that the song came out. So Let's Get Small didn't come out in 86, y'all. It came out in 82, okay? It came out in 82. Don't get it twisted. And shout out to Go-Go. If you know, you know. If you don't, look up Go-Go. It's a pretty cool music. Shout out to DC Go-Go. All right. Let's Get Small, 1986. Same scream since the night before. She locks herself in the bathroom. He holds up the bathroom door with his back. Today's her birthday. Another job gone, the song of another woman all over his lips. Caught. She could taste it. She screams, he screams, they scream. They scream, he screams, she screams. She screams, he screams, their scream. The same scream they began with, the same scream they'll end with, but really it's older than that, deeper than that, and oh, so very black. The same scream since the Middle Passage, since slavery, since Reconstruction, since Jim Crow, since the Great Migration, since redlining, since civil rights. So many screams slicing love. Forgiveness is stitches. It's music found inside a drum. He walks to the record player, puts on their song, the times 4/4 hard on the downbeats, staccato. Something to dance to, something to survive through, something to die to. The bathroom door sighs open. Nothing but a mouth full of silence. All right, where should we go? Where should we go? Let's go this way now. So the other thing I like to say, in my head, I think to myself that I don't do any poetry paddle for this book, but look at me still, right? But yeah, I'd like to say that this is a love story, an American love story, imbued with all the politics of those moments. Another thing that's been really sad, like I said, is just how much that moment rhymes with this moment and how we should have known. I've been reading a lot of this book in the last 3 months, and it's wild how short of a distance the stroll from Ronald Reagan to the 45th is. So many of us fell asleep at the wheel. I have a 9-month-old son, and I'm so afraid. So afraid. Mothership Connection, 1975. Before DJ Scratch, the breakdown was all drum fill, hand clap, bass slap, guitar well, talk over the track, not yet rap, yet always rap. Is funk, is rock, is blues, is jazz, is ragtime, is work song. In short, is black, always black on both sides, black on black on black on black on black on black on black, black all the way down, same scream since. He rests acid on her tongue. You sure it's okay, she asks. Lies sleep on the tip of his tongue, always and forever, don't wake them, she must never. Bell bottoms, crowning platform shoes, the groove moves Denise and Damon, dons a crown is God. Late afternoons, the moonlit, turns to the bedroom, turns to them, and dawn wet from sweat, in the same bed, on the same breath, each body its own riff, ponds of acid trip, ponds of music, ponds of forget, but not for the first time, but this won't be the last. A whole summer they tumbled through a sonic drug buzz. He spins. She assembly lines. It's a Midwest song. A story of factories and dance halls. We're hiring, she says, if you ever want a real job. There now. So one of the things I say about this text is, because so much of it I had to invent from family stories and narratives, that I wasn't as concerned with telling the truth, but telling a truth. Let's go here next. And I think another thing that was really kind of surprising is just realizing from the stories and the pictures, because a lot of this was done from me looking at photos of my parents from this time, is there was seldom that I got to see how deeply they loved each other. And so it was really pretty to know that. And to think about how tough and gnarly and awesome Black love is. And all love is. It's so hard. So hard. Toast to the Fool, 1983. They kissed as if each other's mouth was a cure for a disease they both carried for so long they forgot they had it. A disease no doctors could spot. A sickness that was beyond the eyes of their cousins, aunties, their grandmas, grandpas, their mamas there. They both didn't have no daddies. They kissed as if this was the last thing they would ever do with their lives, as if the horns of the end were loud in their ears, the ground shifting below them, about to take them under forever. They both could always see the end of things, the lastness of last, always on. A dead daddy is a long, long, long song. They kissed as if they were free, as if the color of their skin didn't scar a target around their bodies, as if the law couldn't make them crawl, the police with their guns drawn, their bodies were scared and safe instead of being scarce and sacrilegious. They kissed, 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 they kissed. As if music saves, as if love saves, because it does. Let's hope it does, it does, it does, it does, it does, it does, it does. Let's hope it does. It doesn't. think I'm gonna do about 2 more. We're at the 10-minute mark. Y'all feeling all right? Y'all feeling all right? That's cool. I'm glad. So I'm gonna try to read some stuff closer to the end of the book. Yeah, let's see where we can land. Try to land with some purpose in this. With my mom dying when I was 8, so much of my work is searching for her. Lee, the great poet, often talks about that all his poetry is searching for his father. I feel like that with my mom and my pa. So yeah, through stories I was able to find a little bit of her. This poem's one of those stories of me finding her a little bit. Mustang Sally, 1964. Always Denise's daddy was supposed to be coming. This Sunday at 2 p.m., last Saturday at 4:30, the Friday before that, the Tuesday before that, as far back as Denise could remember. As always, there Denise sat on the crumbling front porch steps, a little girl among little ruins, the little pink straps of her backpack securely strapped, waiting for her daddy to come back. Between inspecting big black ants, letting them climb and scale her hands, she would make believe each passing car was her father's black Bonneville, with the loose and lowered front bumper looking like a swollen lower lip. That Pontiac Firebird with the wide flat hood that spread out like the table Denise saw white folks eat at on TV. That skylark, the color of night after rain clouds sigh and leave the sky. That dusty old Pinto rusted around the wheel wells. Denise saw herself in each passenger seat. Her daddy driving. Sometimes she had ice cream, Blue Moon, in a cup, not cone. Denise is accident prone. Sometimes a brown paper bag full of penny candy. If her mood was better than fine, Denise envisioned Fun Dip with its white dipstick. She couldn't resist it. The only thing that's consistent is just Denise and her daddy, with nothing but wide open road ahead of them and enough time to make up for every time he left her sitting on that front porch until the streetlights announced it was dinner time. This would be my last one. Again, thank y'all so much for kicking it, not watching the Lakers, being with us. Where should we end? Let's try. With every one of my books, I direct from the last one. And so with this one, I wanted to have a bigger and more seeing eye. I felt like I was so much navel gazing, speaking from the lyric eye, and it made me not realize kind of the macro factors of things. Again, thinking about my father as a victim instead of a felon and those kind of things. So, yeah, I think one of the ways that we can end is looking out big. So this will be the last one I'll read. And I don't like to say the words that are said in this poem, but I think I need to. And I think we got to say ugly things because our moments are ugly. And hopefully if we say enough ugly, something pretty will come out of it. I ain't going to stand for it anymore. 1981. When Lee Atwater said, "You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, 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 nigger," Denise and Damon didn't know nothing about it. Most of America didn't either, but kind of did. Just as everybody in America really knows what the deal is, what the real history is, what time it is, Damon likes to end his sentences with shit like, "You know, I'm just a black man with a white man standing on my back." Denise and Damon didn't need to hear nobody say nothing about no Southern strategy to know the plot. The plot not hidden, but in plain view. Denise saw it when the rec center closed again, but this time never reopened. When Lisa stopped selling her food stamps because they got cut. When Denise saw Marcus walking to work because bus fare got too high and no one would take him. When Miss Angie start watching folks' children because Head Start wasn't going to start no more. When Uncle Ernie began taking his pills every other day because he couldn't afford to take them every day no more. When Granny Wilson missed 4 days of dialysis in a row and didn't wake up no more. Thank you guys so much.
Douglas Manuel, folks, please give it up, give it up. We do have our author's books for sale in the bookstore, including What Small Sound by Redhead Press. So please support our authors tonight, and talk to Pablo about becoming a member. Again, it's really it's a great help for us, and it allows us to continue to offer free programming. And last but not least, we have Francesca Bell. Francesca Bell is the author of Bright Stain, finalist for the Washington State Book Award and the Julia Suck Award, and What Small Sound. She's translated Whoever Drowned Here, a selection of poems by Max Sensor from German. Her poems and translations appear in the New England Review, North American Review, Mid-American Review, and Rattle. She lives with her family in Novato, California. Please, a warm Los Angeles welcome to Francesca Bell.
Yeah!
Thank you, Jimmy. And thank you to Doug and Suzanne for reading with me. They're two of my favorite poets and favorite people. And thank you to Kate Gale, who made this book possible. So I'm going to start with a poem about the county I live in. And some of you may have read about a street that's very near where I live called Binford Road. It's been written up a lot in the press lately, like in the Daily Mail even. And I see it every day when I go for a run. And in my poem, I refer to there being 23 RVs, but now there are really closer to 150. Learning to love the world that is. It's good to walk this first smokeless morning in weeks. Though fires burn not so far away, winds are favorable at the moment to me. I hum as I pass the 23 RVs of the unhoused, lined up neatly along the road. A smattering of tents, the tarped and trailered boat someone lives in. As if it were a camp and not an encampment. I'm thinking of rain, which is not forecast, and hate, which definitely is, and a restaurant I loved that incinerated last week. The flight of steps to the entrance survived, and at the top hangs the missing space where we celebrated our 20th anniversary in style. Joggers pass me, and I notice how, though we cover our faces, we cannot paper over the losses of this strange year. Miserly world, I think. Just as flock after flock of geese lift their generous bodies from the stinking slough and fly low over the trees I walk among. They are like a book God writes across this autumn sky, its pages fluttering. The very God who inscribes himself on the hill's dry faces, who etches suffering onto a world that scorches, its forests immolating and magnificent. So like the chef at Meadowood, who shattered dishes and people just before he plated beauty. I'm like a person who resists at first the temptation of a kiss, but then leans fully in, my heart rising on the voices of the geese, their cry a hinge that sings as it does the necessary work of opening. So I was a massage therapist for 4.5 years in my early 20s, and I'm going to read you a couple of poems about that time. Instrument left in its case. My life sucks, but my wife won't, he said, rolling onto his back on my massage table. He laughed a painful choke as his penis slowly rose, a quiet question tenting the flannel sheet. I think he wanted not to be blown, but played, trapped song coaxed from him by careful embouchure and another's breath. I heard the faint thrum of his loneliness all the way home. And for this next poem, it helps if you know a little bit about onions. So onions are a strange crop. They winter over underground. And so you plant them in the fall, and then they spend their winter underground, and you harvest them then in the spring. I leave my window open now to hear them. Nights, I hear barn owls calling, shrill as hunger stripped bare, and think of the onion farmer from east of the mountains, his broad, exhausted body on my massage table. The owl, he told me, screamed all winter from his barn rafters. He said the sound made the cold colder when he trudged from field to barn to house. After I touched all the places I was licensed to, bunched tender shoulders that crept toward his ears, beat-up hands, leathery as a dog's paw pads, each buttock's lonely hillock giving gently beneath my forearms' strokes. He sat up and asked if I'd have sex with him. He promised not to hurt me, to buy me dinner after. He said it plain, did not look away. But I was 20 and knew nothing of desolation or owls or wintering over onions, or of a farmer pacing ugly acres as layer upon layer of stinging, weeping sweetness forms beneath the frozen solid ground. So I realized in each of my books I have one poem about abortion, and so I thought I'd read the one from this book tonight. It has an epigraph. Right to life. It's like hiring a hitman. Pope Francis on abortion. I know what you are, little hitman, little cherub. Snuck up into me, swum past my barriers, implanting like a movie monster who takes a person hostage from the inside. You merely tap your unformed foot and my body bursts into symphony, blood volume cranked dizzyingly up, breasts swelling in fiery crescendo. Nausea slams me forward just as your father liked me, a body bent double to take him. I'm on my knees, little one, surrendered, vomit heaving out of me like prayers. I know, oh, I know the life you've come for. So I've long had the belief that insofar as there was a literal person named Mary, she absolutely had to have been a virgin. I make my case in this poem. Proofs. When the Holy Spirit entered her, Mary was a room made dark by the first sliver of light. Once void, she remained ever after devoid of, the empty that exists when something has been taken away. No woman who had lain after fullness and felt love trickle out of her would have said, "Let it be done to me according to your word." Had she felt life unfurl inside her, or a child tear its way out, and then waited, a wide wound as her body closed, she would never have said, "Give me the child, already nailed into place, destined to run with the scissors of his life pointed up. Let him breach like a great whale beneath the dome of my stretched taut skin and force his way out of this slit husk. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord, his strange carapace, the useless shell that cannot save him. So I've led a very odd life. I won't go into the details, but I managed to be both a precocious child and then somehow a literary late bloomer. And this is a little poem about that, about the late blooming part. Late blooming, mid-January, and still the last amaryllis refuses. Planted in October, it just now raises a green bud tip to the bright window. Inside the plain package waits a blaring red, the flower furled, held like breath in the trumpeter's body. So when I was 24, I started to lose my hearing, and I probably should have gotten hearing aids about 10 years before I did, but I got hearing aids about 6 years ago. And I always think that any experience that you've had, if you've gotten a poem out of it, then it's really been worth it. Conduction. The man drives as closely to my car as he can without making contact. His truck window is down. He is taking my right-of-way. And I'm driving home, already crying from the audiologist's office. I've turned the music on and have just been thinking that somewhere in Denmark, an engineer lays her head on a pillow filled perhaps with eiderdown. Her mind stuffed with equations she mastered in order to write the code for the music setting on my new hearing aids. They cost me as much as a used car and will not stop my nerves from dying, cannot rebuild this foundation that gradually crumbles. But they have resurrected for this moment the voice of the trumpet and polished its bright tones. I cannot conceive of how the years she bent to her math books resulted in this flashing beauty. But I lean on it, the way a person leans on a crutch when her knee has given out. The way I lean on Telemann, who wrote this concerto almost 300 years ago, each note big enough to compensate across time for loss, for the man passing slowly by, menace blaring from his eyes, as triumphant, he raises his middle finger like a baton. Yeah, those guys in trucks. I'm sorry if anyone here has a truck. Hopefully you're not that kind of a guy in a truck. So I'm crazy for dogs, and my whole life I'm always the one that gets bitten, of course. And but I got a poem out of it. Mistakes of one kind. The dog was sleek, brindled. He couldn't help people wanting to touch him. The silence of the beautiful is easy to misconstrue. I offered first my hand, then my face. What's very large is often hard to see. His menace was like that. What happens fast can only be experienced in retrospect. His bite was like that. I leaned into peril, sweetly, as if into a kiss. I was always like that. My face was sleek. It caused its usual commotion. The dog was brindled, big as a man. Once more, I was almost lucky. A surgeon can revise what a wound has written, amend the story a dog's teeth made. But I prefer to see my judgment lapsed than risen on my face. And This was already planned, but this is going out to Suzanne. I feel that I could not be a woman in deep middle age without reading at least one menopause poem. I would lose my position. Menopause, insomnia, news. I flare up and die back down, like the tip of God's cigarette, glowing in the difficult dark, after a day spent running the world into the ground. Aleppo, left out of the ceasefire, blazes, and Prince overdosed in his elevator, unable to rise above the sear of his pain. 3-year-old twins, untended, roasted their baby sister in the oven. And I turn in my bed, dripping like a pig on a spit, and think of my son, who fell into a ring of literal fire. In photographs, his palm smoldered, a handful of embers. I wept 1,013 miles away when he called, alone in his dorm, popped up on morphine and afraid. When I was 10, I touched the stove's element to see if it was hot. My 2 fingers scorched as a good steak. The worst part of any burn is the cold, shivering while what remains chills, like ashes flicked onto snow. So some of you in the room might not know what perimenopause is. But perimenopause refers to those joyful 10 years when a woman has all kinds of weird symptoms before the menopause sets in. Perimenopause. Mornings now, I shave the dusky down mustache from my upper lip. My skin, unused to the razor's blading glide, its scrape, breaks open in tiny bumps, the way I'm casually broken open all the time lately, my tears unchanneled, and at the smallest provocation, making glistening runnels down cheeks that sprout a new meadow of man fuzz. Like the boys of my youth, I gangle, awkward, trip over my own altered self, my loins alight with a strange new life. Last week in the produce aisle, a man I've never been drawn to hugged me. His hands warm the way a pilot light is warm, a staid flicker merely dependable in the dusty window of a hot water heater. But I danced to life, like a kerosene slick touched by the sweet carelessness of a match, and stood there, helplessly burning. And I'm going to close with the final poem in the book. And there's something very funny about this poem. Many women have had this experience, and probably a few men, of, you're on Facebook minding your own business, and someone slides into your DMs, and the men always want to tell you all kinds of things that they think you want to hear. And so after this poem was published, I received apologies, but not from the man it was written to. I'm still waiting for his. Manifest image. The man keeps telling me I'm beautiful. I still look young. He says it like I've asked for it, but I don't care, for him or beauty. I am content to slip into old, wrinkled plainness and walk on, unimpeded. I was young once, my body stunned. My breasts were really something, but I was something else entirely, something no one could see until now. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause to Francesca Bell. Congratulations. And thank you again to Suzanne and to Doug. And to Redhead Press, thank you, Gail, for publishing these wonderful books. Please feel free to stick around, enjoy some reception, purchase Francesca Bell's new work, and thank you for being here. Have a good night.
Yay!